All right, welcome everyone to a Monday morning episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, back for another week of shows as we move into the first real week of the NFL preseason. There will be actual preseason games involving all 32 NFL teams this weekend. This will begin a stretch of Saturdays where for the next, I don't know the exact number, but it is every Saturday until sometime in the month of January, there will be football to watch, whether at the college or professional level. This past Saturday night, while I was with my family in a hotel in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, my son playing in a AAU basketball tournament, and I flicked on the TV in the hotel looking for some sports to watch. ESPN was televising MMA. I'm not really an MMA guy, so that didn't have much interest for me. ESPN2 was televising professional pillow fighting. I don't even know what to say about that, man. Professional pillow fighting. Needless to say, I was not invested in either of those programs and wound up leaving the hotel and walking around, whatever. I'm looking forward to football, real football. And there's lots to talk about, plenty to talk about. On today's show, we're going to talk about what I think is one of the most interesting and important stories in the NFL as we really kick off the preseason. And it is the holdouts of the three most high-profile stars yet to sign, or in this instance, these instances, re-sign with their current franchises. We're talking about Micah Parsons, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson. Where do they stand in their standoffs with their current franchises? And what are the odds they're going to re-sign? Or will they actually, in the case of Parsons and McLaurin, have their trade demands met and be moved elsewhere? Because yes, both of those individuals, Micah Parsons and Terry McLaurin, have requested a trade. Is that just posturing? Is that something you do in a contract negotiation to try to get your employer to be a little bit more giving? Or is it legit? Is it legit? So we're going to get into that conversation. I've returned from a mini vacation, a working vacation, really. The family and I left last week, went out to Pittsburgh Steelers training camp in Latrobe, went and visited a small town in southwestern Pennsylvania afterwards, Ohiopyle. I'm rocking an Ohiopyle hat right now. And there's a beautiful river there, some nice mountains. We did some beautiful hikes, some whitewater rafting, and then trekked back across state for my son's basketball tournament. Interesting basketball tournament. Tomorrow's topic on the Call Sheet Daily is going to be youth sports. Youth sports. And how it has a habit or a tendency to bring out the worst in adults. I've been now chasing my son around football, basketball, lacrosse, seen some great things, come across some great people. I've also just seen some real ugliness. What is it about youth sports that seems to summon that ugliness? That's tomorrow's conversation. But I'm glad to be back. And let's dive into our subject at hand. All right, Micah Parsons. We'll start there. What are the odds that Micah Parsons is going to re-sign with the Dallas Cowboys? Before I give a number, let's look at that situation. Parsons is currently playing on his fifth-year option, the fifth year of his rookie deal. He's playing on a number of about $21 million per season, which, given the fact that Micah Parsons is arguably one of the best 2, 3, 4 edge rushers in the NFL, is a number that is a deal, great deal for the Dallas Cowboys. Clearly, he has outplayed that rookie contract. Clearly, his contract should be renegotiated or extended. And if you're going to do the extension, then how many years do you do it for and what number? The sticking point seems to be the number. Because when you look at what TJ Watt just did in Pittsburgh, TJ Watt re-signed with the Steelers about 10 days ago for $123 million in total on a 3-year extension. $108 million of that is guaranteed. It's going to pay him about $41 million annually. And while you could make a credible argument that Micah Parsons isn't exactly the player that TJ Watt is, I think the great debate about the edge rusher position in the NFL is this: who's the best, Myles Garrett or TJ Watt? And that depends on styles. Stylistically, who do you like better? Or, are you a Steelers fan or a Browns fan? Or what do you when you watch the highlight reels? Whose highlights are you more impressed with? You could make a credible case for either one. But Micah Parsons is clearly in that conversation among the best in the NFL, along with maybe Max Crosby, along with possibly Trey Hendrickson, who we'll get to in a couple minutes. And the thing that really gives Micah Parsons some bargaining power is this. Well, you could say that no, he doesn't deserve more than TJ Watt, because arguably TJ Watt's the better player. Not by much, but the numbers and the results show that, he's the better player. TJ Watt's also 30 years old. He's going to turn 31 during this NFL season. And Micah Parsons is just 26. And that difference is significant because we know what happens to most NFL players on the other side of 30. There are some positions where you can play well into your 30s and still be effective. We've seen offensive linemen do it. We've seen defensive tackles do it. We've seen quarterbacks do it. But the common denominator in all three of those is none of those positions is heavily reliant upon speed for their success. Skill, strength, technique, that stuff's all really valuable, and that's all stuff that you can take with you into your 30s. But at the positions where speed is particularly important, which include all of the skill positions, as well as edge rusher, people tend to diminish when they get on the other side of 30 because they slow down. So if TJ Watt got $41 million a year from the Steelers, and Micah Parsons is just a hair below TJ Watt as a player, but is 4 years younger than him, almost 5, doesn't that cancel out the negligible difference in their performance on the field? Doesn't Micah Parsons deserve as much, if not maybe even a little more, because of the age difference, than TJ Watt? That's the argument the Parsons camp is making. But Dallas GM/owner Jerry Jones is acting as though he wants none of it. And this is not unusual for Jerry Jones. He's been down this road before. Jerry Jones makes a habit of trying to downplay the importance of his stars to the Cowboys. I mean, he did it in the Dak Prescott negotiation. The funny thing, I'll get to the funny thing in a minute. Let me not get ahead of myself. But he did it in the Dak Prescott negotiation where he pretended not to know who Dak Prescott's agent was, even though he'd met with the man several times, where he talked about Dak Prescott's statistics and how there are quarterbacks out there who are arguably better than him. I mean, that's a weird thing to say about a guy who ultimately you would then make, at least at the time, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And the funny thing is about Jerry Jones, the point I was about to make, he's got this habit of putting these negotiations off, delaying them, not out and out disparaging his stars, but taking shots at them publicly and then overpaying them. Because in the time that he lets this negotiation drag on, other high quality players at these positions sign their deals, which ultimately pushes up the bar that he's going to have to pay. He overpaid for Prescott. He probably overpaid for CeeDee Lamb. And maybe he's going to wind up overpaying for Micah Parsons. But he has so angered Micah Parsons that Micah Parsons has made what sounds like an earnest trade request. It doesn't sound like a trade request of somebody using it as a negotiation tactic, like Myles Garrett did. When Myles Garrett wanted more money from Cleveland, he asked for a trade. But you never felt like any sincerity there. Micah Parsons seems fed up with the Cowboys, fed up with being treated like a second-class citizen. It's as if Jerry Jones is coming at it from the perspective of, I'm the owner, and you work for me, and you're not going to dictate the terms of the contract. This isn't a union. I mean, you have a union, but this one-on-one doesn't involve a union. It's not like teachers who are collectively bargaining with a board of education, and there's a back and forth, and they get to have equal say in the contract they ultimately sign. Jerry Jones is coming at it from, I'm the owner, and you're the employee, and let's not forget that you work for me, so you don't dictate the terms. But that's also not how the NFL works for star players. And I think Micah Parsons just feels disrespected, and I think he sincerely would like out. Now, that said, if Dallas comes back tomorrow and says, we'll pay you $42 million a year on a 5 or 6 year deal, that will make you $1 million a season more than TJ Watt and will make you the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, as TJ Watt currently is, I think Micah Parsons would sign it in a heartbeat. I don't think there's any doubt that the right number will change his tune about wanting to be traded. And it's not like Dallas can't pay it. They've got about $55 million in cap space for this upcoming year, and they could restructure a bunch of contracts to create more. But Jerry Jones has a massive ego, and Jerry Jones believes that he is the biggest star in Dallas. And I don't think he likes it when all this attention is paid to the star players, because it diminishes his own. That's why he went out and he hired a first-time head coach like Brian Schottenheimer. He didn't want a star head coach. It takes away from the attention given to him. So, what is the probability that Micah Parsons will eventually come to terms with the Dallas Cowboys? I'm gonna lean more towards he will than he won't, but not by much. I'm gonna put it at about 60%. Because I really do believe that this could get ugly. And that in the end, if somebody comes calling and offers a boatload of draft picks, like the Vikings did in the Herschel Walker trade way back when, Jerry Jones could wind up thinking, hey, that trade got us 3 Super Bowls. What if I could do something similar here? So you never know. Of the 3 players we're talking about right now, I think Parsons has the greatest chance of not coming to terms and playing somewhere else. But I still lean more towards him signing. I'm going to go 60%. All right, quickly, let's talk about the other 2 guys. Terry McLaurin in Washington. He also has requested a trade. His trade feels more like a negotiating ploy than it does a true I want out. Because why would he want out? I mean, this is the franchise that drafted him. They've been very good to him. They already have extended him once. They extended him after his rookie deal ended, and they gave him a 3-year, $68 million deal with escalating salaries in each year, so each year he would be paid more. This year, he's set to make $25.5 million. That's pretty good. That's not Jamar Chase territory. Jamar Chase is being paid about $40 million a year, but Jamar Chase is the best receiver in the NFL, along with Justin Jefferson, and is significantly younger than Terry McLaurin, who is 30 years old. But Terry McLaurin is talking about wanting DK Metcalf money. And DK Metcalf, after being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, renegotiated his deal so that he got 5 years, $150 million, $30 million annually, about $60 million guaranteed. And Terry McLaurin wants at least that. And when you look at the numbers, you could argue, well, he should get it. I mean, here are their numbers over the last 3 years. Over the last 3 years, Terry McLaurin's got 238 receptions, 3,289 yards. That's an average of 13.8 yards per catch, and 22 touchdowns. DK Metcalf has 222 receptions. That's 16 less than McLaurin. 3,154 yards for an average of 14.2 per catch and 20 touchdowns. McLaurin's got 16 more catches. That's about, a catch over 3 years. That's about one more catch every 3 games. So it's basically even. Metcalf is averaging slightly more yards per catch. McLaurin has slightly more touchdowns. The numbers are a wash. So could you argue Terry McLaurin deserves DK Metcalf money? Well, sure you could. But you also have to factor in the age, much like with the Watt and Parsons debate. McLaurin's 30 years old. Metcalf is just 27. So the idea that Metcalf should get 5 years makes a lot of sense. Nobody's going to give 30-year-old Terry McLaurin 5 years. And that's one of the big sticking points in the negotiation. Terry McLaurin and the Commanders are at odds over both the contract value. McLaurin, again, wanting 30 plus. His camp has floated 33 as the number. The Commanders are not really that interested in going that high, but more so it's the length. The Commanders are not interested in a long deal with a 30-year-old wide receiver. And so Terry McLaurin has requested a trade. But if you're the Commanders, are you going to trade Terry McLaurin right now? You're in go-for-it mode. You just had a surprising run to the NFC Championship game. You have one of the most dynamic young quarterbacks in the NFL in Jaden Daniels. You just went out this offseason and acquired players like Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel to help you get to the Super Bowl. Why would you move your top receiver? You wouldn't. So again, even more so than with Dallas, if somebody comes along and offers a boatload of picks for McLaurin, Metcalf went for a second. And then when Pittsburgh traded George Pickens to Dallas, Pickens went for a third. So maybe a late second, early third, something like that. You could probably get McLaurin for that. And then you'd have to redo his deal. But nobody's offering him like a Herschel Walker Hall to get McLaurin. So if you're Washington, why move him? I think the odds, if we got to place odds on this, I'm going to put them at about 80%, 85% maybe, that McLaurin works out a deal with the Commanders. I think this one gets done, and probably sooner than later. As a matter of fact, if I had to decide which of these 3 deals gets done first, I think it's McLaurin's. That brings us to the third one, Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals. Quickly. Hendrickson is vastly underpaid. He is in that second tier of edge rushers in the NFL. If the top 3 are, without a doubt, Watt and Garrett and Parsons, and then that next group, which includes Crosby and Hendrickson and a few others, he's absolutely in that group. But he's only making about $16 million per season. He's a guy who's gotten better and better and better as his career has progressed, and his contract hasn't kept up with it. Is he deserving of the $41 million a year TJ Watt got? No, he's not. But you could argue he should double his salary, or he should get up near that $30 million a year range. The problem for the Bengals is this. The Bengals have committed about 40% of their salary cap to 3 players. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are going to cost them $94 million in cap money this year. That's 39% of their total cap space. So if they do a massive deal for Henderson, and they could, they've got enough money. They got about $40 million in cap space, so they could do it. But if they do a massive deal with Hendrickson, they're now on the hook for almost 50% of their cap to just 4 guys. That's insane. Here's the other thing. Hendrickson doesn't have a lot of leverage. He's already held out. Now, he's reported to Bengals camp. He's doing kind of the hold-in thing. He's already held out. He's already requested a trade. That didn't go anywhere. He even threatened to retire. What leverage does Trey Hendrickson have left? He's done a lot of holding his breath, only for the Bengals to outweight him and him to have to, take that actual breath. So I just don't see him as having any leverage. I don't see him as a player approaching 30 years old on a Bengals team that had a terrible defense last year, needs defensive players, but recognizes, we can wait a little bit on this guy. I think they ultimately hold on to Trey Hendrickson. I think he's the safest bet to re-sign with his team, I'm going to put it really high. I think there's like a 98% chance Trey Hendrickson goes back to Cincinnati on a deal that pays him in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 million a year. So let's recap it. I think Micah Parsons is about a 60% chance to re-sign with the Cowboys. And if he does, he will get slightly more than TJ Watt got. I think Terry McLaurin is about 80 to 85% of a chance to go back to Washington on a deal somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 28 million a year. And I think Trey Hendrickson is about a 98%, about a sure bet as you can get to go back to the Bengals on a deal that is shorter than McLaurin's, but probably fairly similar. All right. Be very interesting to watch this all play out. Okay, real football to watch later in the week, but first, our week of shows. Tomorrow, youth sports. What is going on with the adults? What makes adults so crazy in youth sports? It's a fascinating phenomenon. We're going to talk about that. Whiteboard Wednesday, State of the Franchise on Thursday, Hot Route with Pez on Friday. Stay tuned here. Going to be another great week of shows on the Call Sheet Daily. Thank you, everybody, for supporting this podcast and supporting the Fans First Sports Network. Things are going well here. Looking forward to doing another year of football with you all. It'll be here soon. All right, until tomorrow, have a great day. Take care, everybody.